Is Zach from UW, or not UW, University of Minnesota Duluth. Notebooks is an intuitive interface that allows users to interact with their GIS and other data using Python, from simple administrative tasks to complex analysis. Notebooks provides a clean space to write and integrate scripts into your GIS work. This presentation will provide an overview of notebooks and demo some samples of tasks which can be done in a notebook. Zach, you on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. We can
awesome.
Hear you. Great.
Yeah. I'm just going to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, happy to be here. I work with USpatial, and I'm in Duluth, so up at the UMD campus. And so I just wanted to, talk to you about something that honestly is quite new for me, notebooks, and just my experience so far with it, and it's been positive, really, it has. And so I'm excited about this, and I think that if hopefully there's some others out there that are maybe have heard of it or want to know more about it, hopefully this presentation is going to be helpful. So here's a little brief overview. So what exactly is notebooks? Well, it's actually connected to something maybe you have heard before. Maybe you've heard the term Jupyter Notebook, which is connected to Project Jupyter. So I think it started a few years ago, 2015 maybe, and essentially it's a community with a goal to develop an open source software, open standards, and services for interacting computing across many program languages. Now, one of their products, probably the most well-known, is called Jupyter Notebook. And that is a web application, and it allows users to create and share documents with live code and other elements like equations or different, visualizations, text. I honestly have started thinking about it as kind of when I first learned about story maps, and how, before that I would give presentations often in PowerPoint or Prezi, and how powerful the idea was when I first saw story maps of bringing these different forms of media together in one place. And I kind of see notebooks as that for programming. So what then is ArcGIS Notebooks? Well, it's simply the integration of the Jupyter Notebook environment into some Esri products. And so currently, ArcGIS Notebooks are available in Pro, Enterprise Notebook Server, and ArcGIS Online. And so what exactly are these things for? Well, it's, again, as I mentioned, it's integrating different types of elements into one place that actually are very helpful to have together. So you have code, and you have data that you can actually visualize in that same application, and then you have documentation. You could do a lot of different things with notebooks. So it could be some type of an administrative workflow. You might be someone that's responsible for managing user information or content in a portal, and you have a lot of tasks that have to be done repetitively, and so automating some of that. Development and testing, teaching and sharing. These are just very kind of high-level things, because we're not going to get into the details of the many uses people are using notebooks for, but they're really used across the board for many. The biggest things I've been would be developing little scripts and doing some testing and preparing for this presentation. So why use notebooks? So here's what I would say. I am a novice when it comes to programming. It's not something I do daily, but I have a strong interest in becoming better and more comfortable with programming. And I will say, personally, I really like the interface of notebooks, and I like that it's integrated into Esri's ecosystem, and only because that is something I'm more comfortable with and familiar with. And so having this very intuitive application integrated into some software that I use quite regularly, it just makes it a bit that much easier for me, I don't know why, to kind of use it more regularly. Because yes, Jupyter Notebooks has existed for like 6-7 years now, but I really didn't start using it more regularly until just the past few months, and it's been within the ArcGIS environment. Now I just want to mention there are credits involved with certain notebooks. So if you're using a notebook in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, then you are consuming credits when you're actually interacting with and running the notebook. And I'll show you an example of what this all means, but they do charge by the minute, and it's quite well, I don't pay super close attention to my credits, but depending on if you're not using your notebook, if it's just open and nothing's happening, you're not being charged. So it's actually when you're actually doing some interaction. So there are 3 different what they call run times. So when you create a notebook, you say I want a standard notebook, an advanced notebook, or an advanced with GPU. And you can see here, if it's a standard notebook, there are no credits charged when you're using it. You have access to the ArcGIS API for Python library and about 300 Python libraries, and you have a smaller amount of compute and memory resources. The only difference between standard and advanced, in advanced you can use the ArcPy library, and you have a bit more computation and memory resources. Advanced with GPU, I have no idea. I've never used it. I don't even know what NVIDIA GPUs are, but it's quite a bit more credits. So basically, you have a larger project. They gave examples of AI type work, and you would need things to be performed quicker, and you need more of that that processing power than you would select an advanced. You have cells and kernels. Basically, a cell is something that you write in, and you could either write it, you know what, why am I even, you know what, I'm just going to demo this because I think that it's much more interesting and easier to understand if we just start looking at this. So here is an example of when you're creating a notebook, you go here and it says, okay, as I just explained, the different types of notebooks available. So how much power basically do you need behind these notebooks running? And I often just am using advanced because sometimes I might have a little bit of ArcPy in what I was writing. And so that's, again, the reason I would select advanced over standard. That's the only difference. And I do have a notebook that I have for a demo that I just kind of want to run through, and hopefully it'll kind of give you a better understanding of what this looks like, feels like, and so right away you can see this is highlighted. I have a cell highlighted, different cell, different cell, different cell. So these are all cells, and within a cell you can have them defined as to what type of content goes in them. And you have code, markdown, and this raw NBC convert. Basically, the main ones I use is code and markdown. Markdown is simply anything that is more just text that you want displayed in a pretty way. So this is a markdown cell, or a cell with markdown code in it. Same with this one. These are actual code cells just commented out. And you can see when I switch, it tells you right here what it is. So with cells, you can move them around, up, down. when you select a cell, you can see it's either green or it's blue, the highlight. And basically when it's green, it means you're in edit mode. I could write something here. And when it's blue, it means that you are in command mode. Basically, you can run that cell and do something. So for example, this cell is just going to print out this little sentence. So I could run it either using the run button, and you could see that when I ran it, you got a number 1 here, and then the output of what was actually run. There's many different ways you can run cells. You could select Control Enter and it runs, Shift Enter runs and it selects the next cell. So this is just kind of showing examples of what these cells are and what's happening in them. We're not really doing much here. But if you start, and before we get into, I guess, more code, I just want to show you some examples of Markdown. So people do a lot of neat things with, make some beautiful, like I'm just going to show you quickly this one example I found, the sample notebook that someone put a lot of time into. And this is all Markdown language. And you have all these headers that you can select and go right to the section with the code that you can run and interact with. So my example is very rudimentary and rough, but you get a sense, you can at least see that you can make headers, you can make bold and italicized, you could color text, and this is all with using Markdown language. You can even make tables, you can make formulas. See, these are things that I've never really invested time to do because I haven't had a project that really needed to show that, but it gives you an idea of what you can, the style and the look and how you can organize information all within the same notebook. So I want to demo some example of, okay, so let's see how GIS can be used, GIS data can be used in this. So what if we had an example of, I want to search for stuff in my portal. So I could run this and it's basically saying connect to my ArcGIS Online account. And you can see this little asterisk, it means it's running. And you can also see it's gone, but up here you'll see it's colored black when it's running as well. So if I wanted to find some item in my ArcGIS Online account, I can say, all right, show me items that I own. And I don't want all of them, just show me the first 20. And so it's going to list just in raw text what these items are. Okay, well, what if I just want ones that are vector tile services? I can see it's a subset, smaller. I could say I want to see, I actually want to see these items, not in just text, but I want them displayed below, and I'm going to use a module to do that. And so this is something maybe you're a little more familiar with because it looks like, hey, I know that looks like ArcGIS Online. And so it's just showing me content within, right within my notebook, within this cell. And I could go further and say, all right, what is the first item ID of, the first item in this list, what's the unique item ID of that? And this is it. Okay, well, what is that item? Well, it's this I love this town, Duluth. Ha, what a coincidence. I do love Duluth. So now, what if I wanted to use content that's locally on my computer? All right, let's do a quick little demo. Importing some libraries, and now this is kind of unique because usually if you're writing, working on some type of script, you are probably connecting, well, one, you're probably working locally, you're probably not working in like online like we are right now with this. And so I have a local file, and any local file you have to upload to what's called a workspace. And so right here is my workspace. So I uploaded these earlier. Here's an icon that I'm going to use to display my thumbnail of my item, and then here's the actual shape file of bike trails. So when I run it, so it's created, and now this variable is holding it, and so I want to see it. And so there we go. Now it's a shape file that now exists in my content. So if I go to my content, I'm going to see just a shape file right there. Okay. Now, what if I want to, if I was curious, like, what is this? Well, we know it's a shape file, but you can say what the type is. I could say I want to publish this shape file as a feature service. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm publishing it. And so if we go here, refresh, I can see, all right, we now have a feature layer, post feature layer that was published. We could say, I'm curious what the ID is. So it's a feature service. I'm just saying what type is that? And I can get the unique ID from that. And within this is actually a feature layer collection. And within it, you could have multiple layers. This one only has one, and the one layer in it is bike trails. So if you looked in this item actually and you went to the actual layer, it would show you the one layer, and here's bike trails. So I'm just gonna, because again, we're more familiar with this, it's good to see the connection. So here it is, bike trails. Cool, okay, well, what can we do with this? Well, we could look at the properties. So here are, one of the properties is the fields. So we're all familiar with fields. These are the names, the headers of all the fields in this feature layer. And I could query it. So what if I'm only interested in, show me the bike trails in Spirit Mountain, which is a park in Duluth. So I could query this. And I could see using a spatial data frame, I could actually view this. So now this is basically like an attribute table that I'm looking at of a subset of the bike trail data. So we're looking at the records that make up the polylines that all have the Spirit Mountain Park name. That's what we queried. You can then make a layer, like, okay, so cool. I have basically my understanding, I'm still learning quite a bit, but my understanding of what a feature set is, you know, when you make like a select or create a layer from selection, that's essentially what we've just done. So it doesn't exist though yet in a layer form, and I want it to. So I'm going to say, okay, take that and give me a layer out of it. And so we are making a layer of the bike trails in Spirit Mountain. So it's going to take a minute. You can see it's running. You can see it's black here, and it's and the asterisk is here. And there we go. Now we have the feature layer of that subset of the bike trails. So these are just Spirit Mountains. And what's the unique ID? Here's the unique ID. Why do I need that? Well, because I want to add it to a map. So I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to override this old running of, that was the ID before. So now I'm going to say, okay, I want to create a variable called trail layer, and I want to add Spirit Mountain Bike Trails feature layer collection into it. So I'm going to run that. Now I want to actually, I'm going to use that in a second, because now let's actually start visualizing. You can actually create map views and interact with them the same way that you do in ArcGIS Online, in Pro. So let's create a map view. I've just had to run some libraries, but let's actually create, we're going to use this widget map view, and let's display the map. All right. And you can actually pan, you can zoom in and out. Now I want to change the base map of this. So I'm going to say, okay, show me what are my base map options. what base maps can I pick from? So here's the list of all the base maps for the widget that I could choose from. Well, I'm going to choose the streets base map. So I'm going to run that. And it doesn't look super different at this scale, but it is different. And actually, I want to point out something unique, or not unique, but just kind of, even though I said apply the streets base map to my map 1, it not only displayed it down here when I said display it by writing this, but it also changed it up here. And that's because it's simply the same it's the same object. So anyway, it reflects everywhere within the code. So now I'm going to say, what did I just do? I don't even know. Go down a bit. Oh, so now let's zoom in. So I'm going to say, okay, cool, I have the streets base map on here, but I want to center the map over the best town in the world. No offense, everyone out there, but I am biased towards Duluth. So I'm gonna center it over Duluth, and I'm gonna zoom in to a level that you can see it. So 11 is the level I'm gonna zoom into. So down here, I can see, all right, we're over Duluth now. Now I want to add that bike trail layer in. And where the heck is it? Oh, there. But still, where is it? Well, it's out of view. No, it's not. It's right there. But I could get it zoomed in a little bit to see it a bit better. Or did I already do that? Sorry, I'm going too fast. Yeah, no, I'm going to run it now. So now it's going to zoom into layer. Now, what if I wanted to create a buffer around this? You can do that. Now, this is another thing I just want to mention quickly. There's a few ways you can do this. So there's this analysis, and you can go into, and this looks maybe familiar because it's the same interface as when you're in ArcGIS Online and you want to run an analysis. You can go into summarize data or whatever you want to use. I'm going to use proximity, and there's the buffer, and I could say I want to add this. Now I've already written it, so I don't want to screw up what I know works, but I wanted to show you what it would look like if you had nothing written. So right there, you put in, add whatever tool, and it's going to give you the pre-written code, the very basics that you would need to run it. You'd still have to add parameters and everything, but you get a sense of how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to run this. This might take a minute because it's doing that analysis of basically give me a 10-meter buffer. So I define the distance as 10, the units as meters, and the layer as the bike layer that I'm applying this buffer to. And when I'm done, I want to look at it. I want to display it on the map. So I'm calling the new buffer layer buffer, just so it's obvious. Okay, this says, hopefully this works. I had some issues before. It wasn't working quite the way I was hoping, but we won't wait too long because I know I don't have much time. Ah, yes. See, I'm too impatient. Okay, run. Now we're adding the buffer layer to the map. And we probably have to zoom in because it was only 10 meters. There it is. So we can see all the buffers that were created. You could even add and turn on and off. I mean, everything is done programmatically, so that's no surprise, but like you could turn on a legend, you could turn off a legend, and I don't want that layer anymore. You could remove the layers, all of them. So what if I wanted then this map widget, what if I wanted to save it as an actual map in my ArcGIS Online content? I can do that. I have to define some properties of this web map, but then I could just I'm gonna call it a web map item, and I'm gonna take my object map and I'm gonna save it with all those properties that are necessary for a web map in your ArcGIS Online content. I'm gonna run it, and there it is. So if we go to my content, where are we? Here. If we go to content, we can see all these things that have been added. There's the web map, and then these 4 other items throughout the demo that were added. Now, you may say, okay, that's interesting, but I could do all that much quicker, just with the, interface that I'm familiar with, Pro or ArcGIS Online. Like, you didn't really, why would I use this? How would this actually help me, other than like, that was kind of cool looking. You're right, I didn't show an example of how this could dramatically help you. But I do have, because it's not in the demo, I do have one example. I'm not going to run it. Actually, I could run it because I haven't run it today. But this is a real example of my colleague and I, and I think he might be on the call if Steve is out there. He helped me. Again, I'm new to programming, but I work with some people that are very good at it. And so this is the longest program I've written in an ArcGIS Online notebook. And we did it for a task that we did very repetitively. And like, no surprise, you've heard, if you can make a script out of that, you don't have to manually do that task anymore, especially if it's something done repeatedly. And so we identified some things that we really need to make a script for, because it was just very time consuming. And so I'm just showing you, it's not interesting like integrating instructions and graphics and widgets, but it is the most significant script that I wrote with my coworker that has helped significantly just in my day-to-day life. So while the demo may not have demonstrated that, I will say it's worth, what I love so much about notebooks is it's a friendly environment to really get started. And maybe experienced programmers that are on this call don't care for notebooks, but I'm just coming at it from someone new to it. It feels just like a clean, intuitive space to really start expanding and learning and expanding your knowledge of programming, especially when it comes to GIS workflows. So, okay, you have 1 minute left for questions. Let me turn off my screen. Okay. Any questions?
Quiet group today.
Sorry, it was a lot within 30 minutes. Maybe that was a bit too much, but I don't want to overwhelm you. It's actually it's a lot of fun once you start playing around with it. So I would encourage you. I'm curious, has anyone in this meeting used notebooks? I don't know if I'm not familiar with, I'm familiar with Zoom, so I'm not sure how I could see people that say, okay, someone's been programming for a lot of years. Yeah, see, you like notebooks too. We're on the same page. Cool. Well, I encourage you to look into it, Donna. You might like it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. People are going now. Yes, Stephen, thank you for, so Stephen brings up a good point that they just updated ArcGIS notebooks, and now they have made it so you can run automated scripts. So what I just showed you earlier, I need to add that automation to it, because right now I'm just running it daily. So yes, that is a good point to bring up though. What type of tasks did I automate in your own workflows? The one that I showed a second ago, that was, we are collecting information from counties across the state of Minnesota on critical infrastructure, and we're gathering that information through an app that was made in Experience Builder and is using Survey 123. So it's using Experience Builder, Survey 123, ArcGIS Online, all these things. And what that script does is basically update the database that's storing all that data with any changes that have happened. So basically people that have come in and added data or removed data that was not correct. So it's just updating and keeping the database up to date. Yeah, Claire, check it out. Honestly, I think anyone interested in programming, it's a nice